True success in investment is measured not by the investment, but by successful exits. Over the last 10 years, Centum has probably had an unparalleled number of exits in the market. In this conversation, we'll be looking at what are James Mworia's most memorable deals over the last 10 years. My name is Pius Mushirumugo, the Managing Director of Nabu Capital, and you're watching Invest in Africa. James Mworia.
Yeah.
Without deals, we would not be here.
Yes.
There must be some deals that really stood out for you. What are those memorable milestone deals?
No, thank you for that question. It's just there have been many, so I think I'll just take them in chronological order as I remember them.
Yes.
I think the first deal we did, which was not a high point, when I came in as CEO,
Yes.
was a decision to sell our stake in Rift Valley Railways. We recall we had a 10% stake. We had bought it for $5 million, and we succeeded in selling it for $3.5 million. We took a loss, but what is not evident is that, and then it was a lot of money. Today, it's not a lot of money. So it was 3.5 at the time. But the decision to take your losses, I think, for me, stands out. And at that time, there were those who criticized us and said, you've made a mistake. You should have stayed on. In fact, you should have invested more. Ultimately, we all know what happened to that particular investment. But we took that call and said, we are moving on. And I think the learning to see things for what they are, and where you've made mistakes, calling it as a mistake and moving on, I think is, for me, is important. And it was a major lesson. I think the next major transaction we did at that time is we bought a significant minority position in Kabasid. We put in about $4 million of thereabout. We ended up exiting at around $12 million. So it was a very complicated transaction because the company had been suspended from trading, and one of the shareholders wanted to sell their stake in a company that had been suspended from trading, and we had to find a way of structuring and getting a way to acquire these shares from them. So a typical investor would probably not have bought them because of risk perception. Will the company ever come back for trading? Will it be relisted? What will happen? But we looked at the fundamentals and it made sense, and we could live with the risks. And we took the move, and we bought it, and that was one of the deals that really opened up the opportunities for Centum, because we created $8 million of additional liquidity for the company in a relatively short period of time. I think the next transaction that is memorable for me is the acquisition of Two Rivers, the land where we are on, and how we came to acquire Two Rivers. I was a member of a small investment company called Muhasibu Investment, which I think today you sit on the board.
Yes.
You probably replaced me when I left that board, but I was in that board. And in Muhasibu we had about 50 million shillings of assets, and the opportunity to acquire this parcel came to Muhasibu, and it was being discussed at the board, and I attended several board meetings to discuss it. And about on the 4th or 5th meeting, it occurred to me that Muhasibu we had no capacity to acquire this asset. So I asked them, why don't I take it up at Centum and see if it's something we can do, and then you'll get a commission if we are successful. You support us. And they agreed. And I recall that weekend sitting in the office to put together a business case for the acquisition of this site, so that I could present it to the board the next week. And what we put together initially here was a simple subdivision, because you start by what you know. So, and it worked, and I presented it, and it was interesting. The board asked, it was going to cost us about 1 billion shillings. And they asked me, look, it looks good, but where will you get the money? I said, give me the approval, we'll look for the money. And we eventually went, engaged with one of our banking partners who have been very supportive to us. And they financed the entire land acquisition. So we got all the money, it was ready. But we spent another 1 year, almost 1 year and a half, in various court battles, trying to get a hold of the land. and then eventually putting the whole project together, the master plan, deciding what to do, and then even building a team around it, because we didn't even have the team, so we had to build a team which eventually became Adina Properties, and today that is our largest, one of our largest businesses, accounts for 45% of the, and it began with that one meeting. So opportunities can come from anywhere. And you know, you're always trying to learn, always having an open mind, and really not focusing so much on the obstacles, because it would have been possible to focus on the obstacle. One, we have no money, we have no change of use. Then how do we do it? We've never done real estate before. We have no team. And in one of the investor presentations, when I presented the master plan, and said, this one journalist asked me how much will this project cost, and I said about 20 billion. And they asked me cheekily, how will you do it when I look at your balance sheet? In fact, they are referring to the balance sheet. Your assets are only 9 billion. In this particular project, we've been able to raise almost, the first round was about 70 million, the next one was 60, almost 14 billion shillings of equity capital, and shows you what possibilities are once you have a bankable idea, and you can be able to follow it up to execution. So for me, this was an interesting transaction. It's still work in progress. We're still working on it. And so even when people come and tell me about the challenges of Two Rivers, they are nothing compared to where we've come from. There's actually no challenge left, you know. So this was another one. I think after that, we did another interesting one was when we acquired Gen Africa. And that for me was an interesting one because Gen Africa had been in the market for a while, but we were not aware, or at least I was not aware. And I only got to learn of it the day before the board of Gen Africa was going to meet to approve the sale of those shares to another company. So I learned of it at around 10 a.m. I was actually attending a conference, and somebody called me and said, this company is being sold. And I picked up the phone, I called my contacts there. They said, yes, we've been in the market, we thought you knew. But in fact, we've more or less concluded with one of the parties, and the board is actually meeting tomorrow to approve the sale. So, James, I think you're too late. I then asked him, is there nothing we can do? He said, look, it's late, but why don't you call the seller? So I didn't know the seller. They were from the UK, but they'd flown in for the board meeting. So I called them, introduced myself, never heard of me. Said, this is who I am, this is the company I work from, never heard of it. Says, why are you calling me at 7 in the evening? Because it took me time to get everybody. And this was about 7 p.m. And he said, look, I understand you're selling and we're very interested. And the guy laughed and said, I think you're a bit too late. Tomorrow, actually, I'm here to approve the sale and I want to sign tomorrow. So I think it's too late next time. So I told him, no, you'll be receiving an offer from us. Please take it seriously. And then after everyone has said it's too late, I then did a note to the board and called everybody and told them I wanted to put in an offer that evening, and I was seeking approval. And I got my approvals around 9 or 10 at night, and sent the offer at, everyone had left the office. So I had no one to help people. So I had to come back to the office after meeting my last board member at around 10 or 10:30 to write out the offer, and it had to be firm. So finally finished around 1 a.m. and emailed it, and then printed it, and ensured that it was with the company by 7 in the morning. And in the morning called all the board members and told them we've put in a very solid offer. And to cut a long story short, at 1 p.m. the following day were the parties who were signing the deal. And that's what we bought, and we've recently sold that asset at a 30% IRR. And it's again, you know, you don't really focus too much on the obstacles. You know, sometimes we get blinded by all the problems, potentially it's not possible. For me, the word impossible is not there until I fail completely. But it will not prevent me from trying. And that was an example of something we've put in an effort at. There are many other things we've tried and not succeeded. And many times people fuss, James, we put in so much effort, we didn't succeed. Say, so what? We didn't succeed. What about the ones we've tried and unless you are ready to fail, then you're not ready to be a winner. You have to start off with the mentality that I don't mind if I fail, but what I really mind is failing having not tried. Because then you are assured that you will not succeed. You never really left the starting line. So that was interesting in the way we came in. We've had a number of successful exits, which were very difficult to do when we exited UAP. That was a very difficult exit. Took us over 1 year. And actually almost 2 years. Again, by the time exits are being announced, there's an impression that they just happen. And it just doesn't happen. We've not had a simple exit. All these exits take us years. That resilience. And we've never exited to the party we started negotiations with. We typically end up concluding with like the third or fourth party. So that resilience, that you're always problem solving, you don't despair when people tell you no. You're always taking a lesson. What did I learn? And sort of taking it forward. Even the capital raising for this project, it took us almost 4 years to capital raise. So yes, the announcement happens and people say, oh, this thing looks easy. These people somehow seems to be able to raise capital easily, but it takes time, and many people have come and you've gone through it and you've tried, failed, succeeded. So each transaction we've done, whether it's an acquisition, whether it's an exit, you can actually write a book around it and around the lessons learned and the highs, the lows, and even the ones that did not work are another story, because sometimes you even put in more effort in the opportunities that did not work, but which at the end of the day you say, okay, this is not going to work, and so you go back to the original RVR story of count your losses and move on. If you're going to fail fast. Learn your lessons and move on to the next thing. And you shouldn't lose your confidence. You shouldn't lose sleep about it. You just march on to the next opportunity.
No, it's interesting, James. And one of the things that just is a common thread across all those deals is one of the golden rules at Centum, that a wrong decision is better than indecision. Indecision.
And inaction.
Yes.
Inaction is unforgivable.
So I think that's a good takeaway, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it. I think for me, a statement that is going to stick with me is, if you're not ready to fail, you're not ready to succeed. Thank you for watching. My name is Pius Mushiri Mugo, the Managing Director of Nabo Capital, and you're watching Invest in Africa.